but there unfortunately are several roadblocks or obstacles that we all face in getting what we want. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are on this beautiful planet, you are here, and I'm grateful that you're paying attention. This is episode number 22 of our show, Trigger Proof. How to get what you want. Now, that might be a weird thing. I never thought of myself as having to talk about this, but over the last few weeks with our client calls and the conversations that I've been getting with people, every time that I do a talk, every time I go public, or even somebody that reaches out to ask for our help in my inbox, they DM me, it's interesting to me, it's very bewildering to me. Last night I said, any questions? I was doing a talk publicly in Vancouver. People would put up their hand and they would kind of share a story or in the form of a question. They would go on about it, about a problem that they're having, a challenge that they're having, a constraint that's going on in their life, but then there was no real direct question. And I remember standing there going, okay, thank you. Is there a question for me? What's your question? And just about 10 minutes ago, there was a DM that came in my inbox of about 3 or 4 paragraphs of an entire story about health problems and all of this going on, and there was no question. And I started noticing these patterns in conversations with our clients, with people all around, and I noticed the main constraint of us being able to really truly get what we want. The first and foremost is a deep connection with ourselves. Without a deep connection with myself, I really don't know what it is that I want, and I don't really know how to ask. And today's episode is going to be about peeling back the layers of why, what's stopping us from being able to get what we want. It's usually in our belief systems. A lot of it's in our behavior, but a lot of it is in how we conversate with one another. And to illustrate that, if you're new, by the way, welcome. This is this show is it's called Trigger Proof. My name is Dr. Nima Rahmani. I've been a chiropractor for the last 18 years, helping people primarily with stress-related disorders. And I discovered in my own journey of healing from one relationship breakdown after another, that the discoveries that I made in my own recovery was that everybody coming in to see me as a chiropractic patient was really wanting the same thing, wanting to feel safe in their bodies, wanting to feel connected with somebody in intimacy, and wanting to create fabulous relationships and be able to create a meaningful life connected to a cause or a purpose that's greater than them. And so I started to give myself permission to teach those patients how to self-heal. And now I have a global team and community of global self-healers that we learn how to become trigger-proof so that we can have more deeper intimacy in our relationships. We can answer that question of, should I stay or should I go? We use the relationship limbo that you're currently going through as a spiritual practice, as access to self-healing. And that's what we're all about. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about why you don't get what you want. Now, this isn't just in romantic relationships. This is also in work relationships. And to illustrate that, I'm going to bring on somebody who started off as a client. She's been on this show before. She now works as our community manager, and now she directly reports to me. So she's had some challenges in that transition in getting what she wants in our conversations. And I want to introduce Kim. Hello, Kim. Welcome back.
Hi.
How'd you like that intro? Getting what you want out of the work relationship.
That is great.
So, Kim, can you explain a little bit of this conversation of there was a time where you had to get something done and you had to ask me, but you know that my brain is just constantly into my work and I'm in this creative zone. And then at that time you were this was specifically last year, consistently afraid of my reaction, so it stopped you from getting what you wanted. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes. It's funny, before I was working with you, I had no problem communicating with you. It was kind of funny. I was told by someone else when we started working together that I was one of the few people that they knew that was able to do that with you and didn't get a response from you, or you didn't react. And then we started working together. And that changed a little bit. And what I found was that your communication style and mine, very, very different. I like to talk, and that came across in my messages, or came through in my messages to you. For you, you just wanted just the basics, just very as direct as possible. So, which I didn't realize until I got a couple reactions that surprised me. And I can remember one time I asked a question, and the question was, hey, Nima, can I ask you a question? And what ensued after that was this really long response. How do I put it? It was about 10.
In other words, please ask me differently. If you want something from me, do it in a totally different way than the way that you're doing.
Right, and you wrote a script for me as to how to do it. So there were about 10 separate messages that were coming through, and I'm looking at my phone like, holy cow, what happened? And you actually scripted how you wanted me to say it exactly.
Yeah.
And I just sat there staring at it and totally kind of froze, because I thought, what do I say to this?
But Kim, what I was really wanting to get was, what is it that stopped you? Because what would end up happening is that breakdown in our communication had you start to adapt in certain ways that had you pull away and not be able to get what you want, wasn't it?
Yeah. What stopped me was that reaction. I thought, okay, what did I do wrong? I immediately thought, okay, I did something wrong. What did I do wrong? What do I do instead? So then the next time I would send you a message, I would spend a ridiculous amount of time trying to decide how to write a 1 to 2 sentence message to you.
Because you were what?
I was afraid.
Bingo. You were afraid of what?
I was afraid you were going to be mad. I was afraid you were going to, get mad at me again. I'd get another response like that again. And then we would have another, however long it took for us to work things out. And I didn't want that to happen. And it made it difficult to do my job because I needed an answer to that question.
So then how would you react after that? You basically pulled away, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
After that would happen, I would put my phone down, I'd walk away. And after a while, I would hear messages coming from you. And I just thought, I don't know what else he's going to say, but I don't want to read it.
Yeah.
And typically, it took a few hours for me to finally go back and read the messages. And the messages were actually, you were apologizing.
Yeah, exactly. So essentially, you went from a place of being afraid to actually ask me a question because of my reaction. Can you share how you were able to turn that around? Because now, what's it like now for you if you need to communicate with me?
Now it's not a problem. What I found was that I started trying to understand. Well, first of all, I made it my business to understand the way you liked me to communicate with you. And everyone communicates differently, first of all. You also started changing the way that you were reacting to me because I think you understood also that I communicated the way I do. I'm a little chatty Cathy at times. What I noticed with us was if we started to have a conflict in our communication, in messaging, I would ask you, can we just stop now and just talk instead? That was more helpful to me. Because I think sometimes I was hearing you say something to me, but in a different tone than you were saying it.
Totally.
And the same with you.
Here's what I've observed specifically with us in getting what we want out of the working relationship has been a willingness to be uncomfortable to the other person's reactions and responses. And that is what I noticed the biggest difference with you was your ability to actually sit through me potentially not being me being distracted or me being upset or me having a reaction?
Sure. I did. After it took a few times, and then I started realizing, okay, there's something else going on. It has nothing to do with me. That's what I realized. It actually has nothing to do with me. It's just whatever frame of mind you're in, whatever's going on, you're reacting in a certain way.
Exactly.
So I just decided, instead of wasting hours during my day trying to figure out how to send one message, I'm just going to send the message the way I think you want to hear it. If it's not, oh well, and just get the answer that I need. And that way I can do my job.
Beautiful. Now, thank you so much for sharing that, Kim. I really appreciate it. And I also wanted to acknowledge you, the fact that, your clarity and communication with me and us back and forth has totally transformed, specifically because we have chosen to co-regulate. We have chosen to be conscious and share exactly what works best for us, and if it's not working well, to be able to sit in those discomforting feelings and be able to self-regulate. That's really what I wanted to acknowledge you about, and both of us have done an incredible job in acknowledging both of us, like doing an incredible job in the difficult work that we have to do in helping other people, but then being able to stay connected with each other. So I wanted to say thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Makes it easy.
So essentially, the story around Kim and I is not uncommon, because if you can look at your life and take a look at your romantic partnerships, your work relationships, your relationships with your kids, there are certain things that you would love to give and receive back and forth, but there unfortunately are several roadblocks or obstacles that we all face in getting what we want. It's what causes us to not be able to ask for what we want in pay, ask and show and share with other people how to help them help us get our needs met. Kind of like a co-regulation type of thing. There are the going up and asking a girl out on a date, or a guy out even. These things that we want, there's a little kind of block between us and that. And when I looked at my own life and I started looking at the clients, I noticed there were 5 common things. And Kim's example will be a great demonstration of how that relates to you, because Kim and I's example, because this is what we see across the board. There's this feeling of walking on eggshells. This is ideal for you, if you've always felt like you're walking on eggshells around people. And so there are 5 things that I pretty much noticed, and I wanted to share them with you. And to share that as well, I have Dr. Russell Kennedy, our resident neuroscientist here, to help continue that conversation. So the first thing that I noticed is it's the fear of being seen. So, hey, Dr. Russ, what's up, brother?
Hey, Nima, how's it going, man?
It's good to have you here, my friend. I was just in Victoria a couple days ago, and I got to hang out with you and Cynthia and just had a great time. And I'm saying it right here. I'm committed to moving to the island to hang out with you more.
I know. You say that every time, and you have actually been really good in the last few months of making it over here. Because everybody who comes to Victoria goes, man, I want to live here. I want to live here. Everybody says it.
But I'm gonna live up to what I say. You have my word on it, brother.
Okay.
So check this out. We all want to get what we want, specifically in our relationships, but we always have these things that are blocking us. Now, the first thing I wanted to share with is this fear of being seen, because on one hand, there's this deep, inner child within us that just craves being seen. It's why I do the show. It's why you like to come on the show. We kind of like being seen. Yet at the same time, we have this paralyzing fear of being seen, don't we?
Yeah, I mean that's life. That's how it goes. But it's risk and reward, and it's being able to take that risk and realize that this is good. This actually feels good. This feeds me, as opposed to getting caught up in the fear. And when you get caught up in the fear, you get completely out of connection. You can't be in fear and interpersonal connection in the same moment. It just doesn't. Our brains are not wired to be in fear. We're being chased by a lion. We're not going to go, hey, Sally, how you doing? It doesn't happen that way. So it's learning how to regulate yourself so you can stay in that, what they call ventral vagal, or that place of connection where you're at ease. You know, you can tell in your body language, you can tell in your tone of voice that you're at ease, and then you're connecting with the other person. Your nervous system is available to the other person. So when you and Kim were talking, because I know that the conflicts you guys have had, both of you go into kind of a sympathetic overdrive, like a fight or flight reaction. And when you're both in that fight or flight reaction, there's no possibility that you guys are going to be able to connect. So it's how do you regulate yourself, and then once you get regulated, then how can you connect with another person?
Totally. So that first one is the fear of being seen that stops us from really being able to connect and ask for what we want. It's like, oh, I don't want to be seen, because if I'm truly seen, we then have this fear of rejection. In other words, I want to tell you what it is that I need from you, but I'm afraid of taking off the mask, getting vulnerable and sharing that with you, because what if then you reject me? And that's a deep wound that we just can't handle. It's so triggering that we just don't even want to go there. So we just don't ask for what we want.
Yeah, and it's all, you know, it comes from childhood. Typically, every single one of us as a child has had a point where we were tried to be emergent, we tried to share our art or share our idea or whatever, and we got shut down. And we got shut down in a way that wasn't pleasant. So the amygdala, the part of your brain that looks at fear and looks at your environment and says, is this safe, fires off, and then it tells you in no uncertain terms, do not do that thing again. So if you put your hand on a hot stove and your amygdala tells you don't ever do that again, that's great. But if you go out and do a talk when you're 8 in front of your class and you get laughed at, your amygdala will also say, do not ever, ever, ever talk in front of a group of people again.
Totally. And then what happens is the impact of this is that it blocks you in your business. You don't want to put yourself out there. Because what if somebody says something to you, or what if somebody comments on your social media negatively, right? You have to be seen. This is like if you run a business and it's online or it's a network marketing business, these two things are really what's mainly stopping you from getting what you want. 100% right there. Which then, what ends up happening is this next thing that it's called fragilization. So this is something that I've been very guilty of, Russ. And so the story that I used to tell was that I don't like to tell my parents the truth of what's going on in my life or what I was going through, because they can't handle the truth. And the truth of the matter is, their reaction is their reaction. But if you really look at it, me using other people as an example to not tell the truth because they can't handle it has more to do with my inability to sit with them through their uncomfortable emotions. Because I will pull myself in, and then I'll have to deal with the feelings of guilt, then I have to deal with the feelings of shame, then I'd have to deal with the feelings of regret, and that was what I'm trying to protect, not them and the truth. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's basically 3 levels that we operate at any one particular time. There's one where we're connected, our nervous system is regulated, we're having this face-to-face conversation, and then the next level down that is sympathetic overdrive. Your fight or flight nervous system is geared up. Even if you're going to buy a ticket for skating or something, just what is this person going to think of me? Or that your nervous system gets flared up a little bit. And then the bottom level is what they call dorsal vagal shutdown, which is where you're completely shut off. You're not reachable by friends, family, anybody. So it's kind of like this shutdown. Then there's the sympathetic activation phase where your nervous system is revved up, but you can't really connect. And then there's this top phase where you're in the zone, where they call it ventral vagal, but the name doesn't really matter, but you're kind of in that connecting zone. And we've all been there with our friends, when you're feeling calm, you're out at, you're having a vacation, you're talking around the pool with your friends, you're in this ventral vagal, this top level of connected activation. But once you get out of that level, it's very quick to go into fight or flight. Even though you're not going into massive fight or flight, even if you start going in and doubting yourself, your nervous system starts to rev up and it pulls you away from that ability to connect.
Yeah, and you're not able to, and in that space, you're not really able to get what you want.
We can't, because the other person feels that fight or flight. So if your nervous system is connected with theirs in any way, they will pick it up as well. And that's when we get into these disconnections with our partners, with our friends, with our business associates, we have pulled them into our sympathetic fight or flight nervous system. So of course, your level of connection is going to be off. So it's basically regulating your own nervous system first before you go in and have those tough conversations.
Totally.
So you're in that prime ventral vagal stage where you reflect that to other people, and they're much more likely to reflect that back. So why we don't get what we want is we essentially go into a form of fight or flight, of worried about what's going to happen, about what their reaction's going to be.
Totally.
Exactly, and that is what's called fragilizing. That basically is an assumption, is not holding that person accountable, is an assumption that they are weak and frail and aren't able to handle the truth, my truth. So we hide it. And so in the work environment, it looked like Kim not asking a question. So these types of things block us getting what we want, because, oh my gosh, what happened? So your work is to become very aware of this. This story that you're telling that I'm going to hide the truth from this person, you're really protecting yourself. To own that first, and then, as Dr. Russ said, learn the skills of self-regulation, because that's the next one, is your inability to stay grounded and connected during another person's reactivity. This is what's stopping us from getting what we want. Actually, this is stopping us from asking for what we want, because you're not able to get what you want unless you are asking. Making requests. Bold requests are at the underlying foundation of us getting what we want. And if we don't have that ability to stay grounded in ourselves and we're fragilizing because of a fear of rejection, and then the fear of really truly being seen and then being pulled away, then there's no bold requests and you can't manifest. You can't get a pay raise, ask the person out on a date, request proper, being treated with respect and dignity, because you're not giving it to yourself. Does that make sense? Can you see the line of thinking there, Russ?
That's absolutely true. And it's holding another person accountable on one hand, but also holding them capable of being able to handle your request. And
if they can't, it's not about, as Kim said, it's not really about you. It's more so about their wounding as well.
Yeah, it is. It's both, because it is about you in the way that you can't handle what you perceive their negative reaction might be. That's how many questions go into this whole thing. And when you're not resourced, when your nervous system is in some form of fight or flight, you're not resourced, so you don't see the positives. All you see at that point is the potential negatives. And the potential negatives come right into your frame of reference, and that becomes more real to you than reality, which is you're just asking for a date, or you're just asking for a raise. All you're doing is doing that. And I noticed that when I have tough conversations with Cynthia, my wife, or my stepsons, or my daughter, or you and I resource myself first. I bring myself into connection first, and then I'm able to ask those questions, because I can see that I'm only asking a question. If I'm in sympathetic fight or flight, I'm really dependent on what your reaction is.
Thank you so much, Dr. Russ. I really appreciate having your input on this, and it's great to have this conversation. And plus, you look dead sexy today. I have to say, the purple works for you, brother.
You can ask me for a date. There you go.
Okay. Well, I often say, whenever, it's funny, Russ and I get along, and we have this really neat co-regulation of asking for what we want, because we've committed as friends, as this bromance, to really, this is one of the most conscious relationships I've ever had is with you, and also Eilina and Kim, and like, it's just through taking on this work, the level of connection and intimacy in my friendships has gone through the roof. And one of the things I admire and appreciate about you is your commitment to helping me get what I want, and me helping you get to what you want, and just our level of connection and communication around it, which is all basically this stuff that we're sharing.
Yeah, and that you can have disagreements. Your sympathetic nervous system can flare up because you and I typically have had a few scraps in the past, more than a few.
You know what? I compared to the scraps that I've had before, dude, this is nothing. I don't consider them that. You know, we get a little bit heated at times, but it's just like nipped in the bud within minutes. So it's really neat.
Well, what do I tell you about our scraps? Like when we get into these disagreements about stuff, what do I tell you about them?
You're right, Nima. You're so right. I'm wrong. And I'm wrong and you're right. And I finally figured that out. Thank you for proving me wrong.
Can Fantasy Nima kind of leave the stage for a while and bring the real back? What I tell you is that this is good for us.
Say I'm committed to this friendship.
This is good for us. What we're doing is we're regulating each other's nervous system.
Exactly.
So when we have a disagreement and it gets kind of heated, and then we come back and go, you know what? I could have done it this way. I could have done it better that way. How can we make this work? We're actually regulating each other's nervous system. If we stayed like friendly all the time and everything worked out perfectly, we would never have that opportunity to go into that sympathetic overdrive and then realize, hey, this other person is safe. So it's like, okay, so we have these scraps, and then we come back and what our brain learns from that point is it's okay to express what you want, even if you're kind of tense about it.
Right. It's okay to tell the truth how you feel.
Yeah, if the other person supports you, then you're less worried about doing that in the future, and your relationship gets stronger. So it's all about it's not so much having this perfectly, I'm in tune, you're in tune. It's like when you have the scraps and it's safe to have the scrap because it's going to make your relationship stronger.
That, my friend, is the intimacy upgrade. That's exactly it. And I just wanted to say I appreciate that with you. And thanks for being on today, brother.
You're welcome, man.
Awesome.
See you again.
Thank you. So check this out. This is interesting. So it starts with your fear of being seen, then fear of being rejected if you're seen, and then what happens is we fragilize. Well, I'm not going to go and ask for this business opportunity because what if they say no, and then I have to deal with rejection and being seen and oh no, and this all, as Dr. Russ says, comes back to our early wounding in childhood. And this inability to stay grounded and connected during somebody else's reactions is fragilizing. It's not to protect them. You don't hide the truth to protect them. You're actually hiding the truth to protect yourself from the feeling of guilt, from the feeling of shame, from the feeling of rejection. So just own that. And once you own it, you can see it, you don't have to be it. And it all comes down to this. And this is why this show is called Trigger Proof. Because as you want to get what you don't have what you want, is because a fear of being seen is a fear of being rejected, and you fragilize and you see them as small and unable to handle the truth, because the truth is of your inability to sit with your own feelings and emotions when somebody else is having a reactivity. And then that all comes down to your inability, my inability, our inability to handle our triggers. And that's why I call the show Trigger Proof, because it doesn't mean trigger less. Kim triggers me, I trigger Kim, we work together, Russ and I work together, we're friends, it happens all the time. I'm literally being triggered all day long doing the work that I do. It's just part of it. The question is, can you trigger surf? Can you learn how to use the triggers as an access point to self-connection and self-regulation, and use the conflict between you and another person to deepen your connection? Now, admittedly, it's easier and more, what's the word I'm looking for? More fulfilling when both parties are in this game together. This is the new version. This is the latest version of deepening intimacy in relationships is called co-regulation. You're going to be hearing about it a lot, and this is the thing that I'm teaching, and my vision is to create a community of self-healers that are committed to co-regulating, regulating themselves and helping regulate each other, because truthfully, because of the neurobiology of we do need each other. So it comes down to being consciously aware. Last night was the most interesting example that I could ever show you in this. Why they don't get what they want. You see this Vietnamese couple that have been together for about 8 years, and they're at their wits' end. So they came to my Restoring Intimacy seminar, talk that I did last night in downtown Vancouver, and I saw the woman he wasn't there the whole time, but she kept getting up and walking out. In other words, her entire evening was ruined. She wasn't present for the entire talk. She was miserable, she was resentful, she was like, oh, she kept getting up, and I was watching her get up and down, and I was like, wow, I'm really pissing this woman off. I totally made it about me, and I was like, wow, I must be pissing her off. Because usually when I speak, I trigger people. That's kind of like what I do, because I talk about there's nothing more triggering than the truth. So I do everything I can to be as truthful as possible, and that's pretty triggering. At the end of the evening, her husband walked in with her, and I was like, oh, who is this guy? I never noticed. And he says, can we talk? And they had a little bit of a broken Vietnamese accent, but we could communicate pretty well. And they were livid with one another. They were so pissed off, okay? Now, I said, well, you know, what happened? Turns out, he told me this story. He goes, look, she's been trying to get me out to all of these things for years, and I've always said, no, forget about it. And she's been frustrated because she's not happy with the way that the relationship's working. Tonight was the first time I came. I got a ticket. I was interested in coming and listening. But I couldn't find parking. Now check this out. His job, he drops her off. His job was to go and find parking. So he went to find parking, and because there was an Iron Maiden concert just close by in the Rogers Arena downtown, right next door to where we were, where we had our event, there was no parking. And she couldn't believe for the life of her that he actually was out for 2 hours looking for parking. He told me, he said, I was completely, I couldn't find parking. And they got into this argument. Turns out she got triggered because of a past wounding of a man that constantly let her down. So she was triggered. And I looked in his eyes. I was like, is he joking? Because how do you not find parking for 2 hours? Turns out, here's what happened. And I called it out, and because I could see it. They couldn't get what they wanted from each other because of their inability to handle their triggers. As he's coming, he's feeling a little anxious. He can't find parking. He all of a sudden gets triggered because of a mother who was angry and abusive, because he shared that with me. And when he sees a mother that's angry and abusive, that's disappointed, he's like, oh my God, I'm gonna disappoint her. He stops being able to use his brain and goes into, as Dr. Russell says, sympathetic overdrive. In that case, your creative mind isn't thinking, you're in amygdala response. And I truly believe him that he wasn't bullshitting me in this. He couldn't actually find parking. And every minute that would pass, he would get deeper and deeper into his state of alarm. And finally, when he figured it out, he came back and saw this disappointed look on her face, and she was pissed. She was like, because you can see their entire relationship pretty much came up in that moment. All of the things that were constraining them. And after everybody had left, he had asked for me to talk him through this. And I literally showed them exactly what was going on. And he was just like, oh my God, thank you, doctor. Like, this is exactly it. She doesn't believe me. And I had to explain to her that his inability, he was fragilizing, okay? He was in a space where he was fragilizing and saying, oh my God, I can't tell her the truth, which is I'm ashamed and I feel so guilty for not actually finding a parking place. He felt so ashamed and guilty, but he was afraid to share that with her because he was afraid of her reaction. So his alarm and his alert and his kind of shield came up, and he started defending himself. And then now you have two egos defending, and welcome to every conflict that you've ever been through. I literally showed them both that none of them are wrong. I showed them both that each of their triggers that they're unable to handle and see in the moment are coming from their core wounding. And they both committed to actually healing this. They were like, wow. And he missed the entire event. But after I explained that to him, he goes, I learned so much. And I said, this was exactly what should have happened in that moment. He was supposed to miss out on this. She was supposed to get pissed. He was supposed to get triggered. He was supposed to fragilize. And they were supposed to have this breakdown to pretty much see exactly what's coming up in their relationships. It's going to show up again and again. And it's in these moments of trigger where it's your responsibility to call on your higher self to choose another path. This is conditioning, and it's not going to go away overnight. And it happens through massive transformation. And this is what I absolutely love teaching. And to illustrate that, we have these events called the overview experience, where we get reconnected with that wounded part of us and learn how to change the story. And I wanted you to see, we have these events coming up over the next couple months all over the world, 5 continents in the next 4 months. And I wanted you to see this little video demo that shows what we do.
Your life is a movie. The shit that's not working, whether it be a health issue, whether it be a relationship issue, whether it be a business issue, pick one scene that really is like a trigger or a button for that entire story. Pick one night that you really recall being frustrated. There was everything going on. There was noise downstairs. So-and-so was calling. You know, you're arguing with the one, you know what I mean? It's gotta be a triggered button.
I think the most profound thing that I've learned in all of this is my place not only in my own relationship, but also my own body. And it wasn't balancing myself emotionally. That's where I'm not at my center. I'm not in my balance spot. So this duality thing has been really profound for me. It's been an amazing thing to learn.
You write it out very simply. 3 days ago, trying to sleep at night or arguing with the missus, feeling angry. As long as we have a scene and we can freeze frame it in time.
When I'm living in a state where I'm out of alignment, I can be completely disordered and things in my life just fall into chaos. This program and this work has allowed me to get back into my body and get out of my head. It's really, truly all that I need.
The whole purpose of this weekend is to really get you to see all parts of yourself. And whatever happens this weekend, whatever shows up, whatever triggers come up, whoever pisses you off, whether it's me or somebody else, this is your life.
I worked with Nima. I've been working on my stories, my tendencies toward excess and going super hard at things and exhausting myself. And I'm happy to say that I'm almost probably 80% better. I love this workshop, learned all kinds of great things, great energy. Nima is an awesome speaker. And I would recommend working with Nima.
This weekend, you're going to get acquainted with feelings that you might have been trying to push away or deny or reject within yourself. I believe that most chronic health problems are because of repressed emotions.
I'm Dr. Ross Kennedy. I am a medical doctor and a neuroscientist, and I've been involved with Nima for about a year now. I think he's going to be unstoppable.
How many of you guys have been to a doctor? And how many of you can you really just, if you're honest, you know that it was a stress-related problem that sent you there? Exactly. So if it's a stress-related problem, drugs and surgery are not going to solve the problem. My commitment to you is you leave here with a completely different nervous system. Who you are coming in on Friday night is different than who leaves on Sunday afternoon.
I've been a physician for almost 30 years now. I've had over 100,000 patient encounters. I've seen people in various states of stress and agony. And I'm telling you that people do change. And the overview process, what he's developed, and he showed me that you can actually change.
We all want to be able to have the will and the power to create a beautiful future. There's things that happen in your past from childhood on, and what happens is our bodies trap those. Here you are in the now, trying to move forward, and these emotions cause you to think in exact alignment with how you're feeling, which causes you to feel how you're thinking, which causes you to think how you're feeling. And this never-ending loop causes us to recreate our past again and again. Not only can we change our story about the past, but if you put the work in, you can change the sensations and create a beautiful future.
I had debilitating anxiety. I took every pill. I pushed so hard that my body finally gave out one day. And for 2 years, I was stuck in bed. My life changed completely. I mean, you really have to prove it to me if you're gonna get me to believe in you and in your method. I have to see the proof, but I was the proof.
Nima is very effective in communicating concepts and ideas with music and with entertainment and using stories, because stories is what really gets people engaged, is the stories of their lives, to make it really real.
If you're able to self-regulate your nervous system, those old stories, those old compulsions fall away. And they fall away just by themselves. You don't need to get rid of them, because when you heal from the inside, when you get connected to yourself, those things, there's no need for them anymore. So I'm really proud of him. I'm really proud to be his colleague, and I'm looking forward to us moving forward and really changing the world.
So that was my first time kind of incrementally progressing with all of this tech stuff. That was done by Measurable Genius. They came to one of our live events called the Overview Experience, and we have some amazing stories and clips. It's really the upgrade of intimacy required to get what you want in your life. Really, essentially. We get disconnected from ourselves, and because of past stories and traumas, and this weekend workshop and the work that we do with our clients is to answer this question, how to get what you want. And the answer, usually, I say it again and again, but it's worth repeating. It requires an intimacy upgrade. As you heard from Dr. Russ, our neuroscientist, nervous system regulation is the first thing. If you don't know how to regulate your nervous system, you're constantly being triggered. One of our earlier episodes on YouTube, please check that in, log in, and watch, because I go into the details of how you regulate your nervous system and what you're supposed to do on a day-to-day basis so that you can show up more present in your body. The next thing that you need to do in order to learn how to upgrade your intimacy and have that power to get what you want, to sit in those discomforting feelings, to stop fragilizing, and to consciously create, is you must learn how to create to clear your past resentments. I'm a big fan of Joe Dispenza. I'm one of his students. The problem is with mindfulness techniques, often it is a distraction from running away from a past guilt or resentment or a trauma that you just don't want to face because it's too uncomfortable. So all the mindfulness practices that you do of future creation, future self-creation, future self-journaling, all great, but without clearing your past resentment and chronologically through story, through the left side of your brain, which is your analytical, and then the right side, which is the creative, without kind of integrating those two together and making sense of it, you're always going to be running from something. You're always going to feel not present in your body. You're going to have a lack of understanding for other people. It's like being chased by a tiger constantly. And the next part is to learn how to dance with your dark passenger, that little inner critic, that ego that's protecting the wounded parts of you, that tries to keep you safe. It just happened. I was in the elevator with Lucy, and this little dark passenger of one of the passengers in the elevator, she sees my dog Lucy, who's a cute little Maltese poodle, and I can see her literally going into freeze. And then she says, "Oh, I've always been afraid of dogs." And then I looked at her and I said, "You know that story can change." And then she goes, someday. And if you've ever caught yourself saying the words someday, I'm here to tell you, someday isn't on the calendar. There isn't a date on the calendar called someday. If you don't put it in the plans and take action now, it generally won't happen. And the thing stopping you is fear. It's like someday. Why? Because I don't want to confront the horrible feelings of petting this dog. I don't want to confront that. And so I've helped a lot of people overcome their fear of dogs, and each of them have said someday. And I'm like, no, it's going to happen today. I bring them right up, and then I say, let her smell you. And then I get her to, get them to pet. And then all of a sudden I've had like 10 people mysteriously overcome their fear of dogs by loving up on Lucy. It's pretty powerful. But you must learn how to navigate that little voice of that inner critic and learn how to distinguish it yourself from it and be able to call yourself out. Oh, I just said someday again. Oh man, did you hear what my brain just said? Someday. That's you dancing with your dark passenger. That's you contending with that little voice in your head and then choosing one that's more in alignment with your greater version and the outcomes that you're actually looking for in your relationships, in your career, in your health, in the way you look and feel in your body. It all comes with learning how to dance with your dark passenger. And of course, it's critical that you learn empathic communication. Empathic communication first with the wounded parts of yourself, because chances are, if you are like most people who've had traumatic inherited family trauma, you haven't really had this feeling of being seen and heard from your caregivers, primary caregivers. They were caregivers, but they weren't really learning how to parent properly because there was no understanding of it at the time, and they were dealing with their own traumas often. So you were raised in an environment where you weren't seen and heard. You don't know how to see and hear yourself, quite honestly, quite often, and then you won't be able to see and hear others. So it all comes together once you learn empathic communication with yourself and other people. Once you learn this, it becomes a superpower. All of a sudden, getting what you want out of life becomes easier, because you then get to see what you want and you see what others want, and you create win-wins. You're able to make bold requests. You're able to stand in your truth. You're able to handle your triggers. You're able to speak, what you want, and confront that fear, because that's really all it is just another dragon to slay. Every episode that I do, I must empathically communicate with the child inside of me that feels afraid of being judged by you, the little part of me that is really on this because I want to be seen and heard. And so once I learned how to empathically communicate with that, I could take steps forward into my fears. Every single week I do this show, I have another level of fear that I must override, because I'm trying to learn new content and integrate it as quickly as possible and really get a felt sense of it so that I can convey the answers and the discoveries to you, because I'm a teacher. This is what I do. I teach what I most need to learn. But the more that I empathically communicate with myself, the more empathically I'm able to communicate with others and be able to create a life where I can get what I want, because I'm really helping other people get what they want. That's really the big secret. And the last part is you must have a commitment for this, because this work is not really, it's kind of like picking up a barbell. Yeah, it's going to help you to do some bicep curls. And if you make the exercise a part of your life, you develop physical fitness, you develop energy, you start developing self-confidence, you start developing a groundedness and an inner poise and strength and resilience. Well, this is the same thing. This is the inner conditioning work, going from unconscious conditioning to consciously co-creating and overriding those old conditionings. And why is that important? Because you want to have really great relationships, you want to have work that's meaningful, and you want to live a life of abundance. In other words, you want to get what you want, but you can't get what you want if you're dissociated from yourself and you have no ability to sit with your own feelings of being triggered. Hence, becoming trigger-proof is one of the most important things. If I can impose my values onto you, is one of the most important things that you can take on in learning if you want to have a fantastic experience of life. I just 18 years as a chiropractor, I pretty much whittled it down to its bare elements, because I'm lazy, and I'm not really lazy. In certain things I am. I'm just kind of joking a little bit. That is the singularity model. This is what it is. This is exactly what we want. Because when you learn how to regulate your nervous system and clear your past resentments, you're getting what you want, which is you want to be present in your body. You don't want to be so distracted. You want to have access to presence. Most people don't. They'll ask me questions. I can tell by your DMs. I can tell by the questions that you give me in these public talks. I'm like, they put up their hand, ask a question, and then they finish, 2 minutes of talking, and then I go, so what was your question? Because they're so disconnected and dissociated from themselves, they don't know what they want and they can't get what they want. So when you know what you want, you have a presence, you're able to ask a direct question or make a direct request because you're present. And once you've cleared your past resentments and you've learned how to dance with that inner critic and you've learned how to witness your ego, you develop a sense of understanding for yourself. You've cleared the past, it's no longer haunting you. You're no longer a victim. You're not being chased down by a tiger. You're not a victim anymore. You now have understanding towards your parents or all of those people that you've been resenting, your ex, whatever. You're now able to understand them because you understand you, because you've learned how to dance with your dark passenger. You're not judging and shaming and blaming yourself. You're not beating yourself up so much. And once you've really learned how to dance with that inner critic, that dark passenger, and you've regulated your nervous system, all of a sudden the mask comes off and people will start telling you, wow, you're so much more authentic. One of my good friends, Ami, he was watching some of my content, some of my Facebook Lives, and he said, Nima, this is the most authentic I've ever seen you. And I said, thank you. I was like, thank you, I accept that. And it's not because I'm anything special, it's because of this work. And you have this ability to get in front of a camera, to get in front of a live audience or whatever, or even your partner, for Christ's sakes, and just say, speak your truth, be able to handle your triggers, stop fragilizing, and really be able to resource yourself and get what you want in this life. Because really that's what it's all about. And at the end of the day, what we really want is self-love. That's the hallmark of this work. That's the end point, the holy grail of this work that we do. It's why we get into relationships. It's why we get triggered, is so that we can look at the access point to self-love. Because at the end of the day, what we want to be able to do is to look in a mirror and smile and say, I love that person. And that is what is available to you when you take on this work. So let me know if this was relevant for you, what came up for you in this conversation. If you have any questions, if you have specific things that you want to discuss or you want to apply to come to one of our events and actually learn how to become trigger proof, send me a DM and you could qualify for a strategy session with me and a coaching strategy session where we outline exactly what your next 90 days to 1 year you want it to look like, and you basically take that courageous move to say, I'm worth it because I want to learn how to get what I want. And that's what we have for you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for paying attention. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for sharing. And make sure you subscribe and share and tag somebody that you know really needs to hear this. Somebody who really wants to upgrade themselves and take on the responsibility of being at cause for the transformation of their lives and their relationships and their health. This is the channel, this is the community. If you're not already part of the Art of Powerful Alignment, please join so we can continue the conversation. All of the content is posted on there as well, so you make sure you log in and you get notifications so you don't miss a single thing. Make sure you're following me as well on Instagram at Dr. Nima, and also follow Dr. Russell at The Anxiety MD. If you look him up, The Anxiety MD on Instagram, he's there and constantly putting out great content that just helps you reconnect with yourself. He's been a great influence in my life, good friend and mentor and bromance, whatever the hell you want to call it. And I'm grateful for Kim and Eilina and all of my team and you for listening, for paying attention, for asking questions, for engaging, for sending me private messages and letting us know what an impact it's making. I'm talking to a camera right now, but I know that I'm looking through this camera and I'm connecting with a soul. And if you don't reach out and you don't share or you don't like or comment or share what's going on. We don't really know. And us content creators, we are constantly doing it because of the love of what we do. And it also is very helpful to let us know feedback so that we can always improve. I'm always here to improve. I'm a work in progress. And I'm grateful that you joined us for another episode. Join us next week, same time, where we help you transform the most important thing of your life is relationships externally by transforming the relationship with yourself and your connection to meaning and purpose on this planet. That is what we want. Hopefully you learned a little bit of how to get more of what you want, and I'll see you at the next perfect time. God bless.